Marissa Gutiérrez-Vicario is an artist, curator, educator, and human rights activist whose passions drive her to bring about a force of change from within. She is the executive director of Art and Resistance Through Education, ARTE, an organization that educates young people around human rights change, and she is also an adjunct professor at the City College of New York in the Art Education Department. By educating and empowering young people to use art as a means of social justice and human rights activism, Marissa creates opportunities to connect them to challenge local and global issues. She has traveled to over 50 countries to present workshops and research peacemaking through various fellowships. You may read more about Arte at www.artejustice.org. Marissa, thank you for being my very first interview. I'm very excited to talk today about what you have coming up in 2019, some of the projects you have been working on. So you're the founder and executive director of ART, which creates opportunities for young people to use art as a means to promote human rights and social justice. What experiences in your life have led you to develop this vision for a nonprofit?
Great. So thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be the first person. I feel very excited and it's an honor. So again, my name is Marissa and I am the executive director and founder of Art and Resistance Through Education, or ARTE. And I've always been really interested in the intersection of human rights and the arts. Um, my entire life I really grappled with that. Do I go into politics and I study international relations, or do I focus on this like creative part of my life? And so, growing up, I went back and forth with that. And I think, but at the core of everything, I was really interested in activism and human rights. So for me, I started this because I wanted to create more creative spaces for young people in terms of, how we talk about human rights issues, how we talk about social issues, social justice, in a way that is more connected to who we are as human beings and our identities. And I think the arts gives us a space to do that, an opportunity to do that. It's, it's not merely just digesting the all the media and the information that we have, but it's a way of processing and reflecting on it.
Right. I feel like, the big thing now is you have a lot of social media, which I feel like could be a double-edged sword. You could get, very positive, effective, use out of it, but then at the same time, there's a lot of negativity on it. And that's, like you said, what do? You're it's thrown at you.
Totally.
And then it's just you end up gravitating towards what you agree with and just saying, well, that's the correct thing to say, or that's the correct mindset. And that's, as opposed to creating your own or having your own opinion or your own positive spin on things. It's something that's thrown at you. Did you envision this kind of role all along? As you, went through school, or, as you went through experiences that you've had?
I think in some ways, yes. I forget that this the work that I'm doing in starting a nonprofit and attempting to make it more sustainable and doing this work, I forget that it's a unique position to be in, and it's like I said, it's an honor to do this work. So in some ways, I've always dreamed about creating something. To me, creating something and leaving something in the world, especially after we leave, I think it has always been something that has been important to me. For me, I've always dreamed, I come from, compared to other towns, but I come from a smaller city in Southern California. By no means a town, but by no means New York City, where I am right now. And for me, it was always a dream to travel and to explore the world and to meet people and to meet different and be a part of it, or learn from different cultures, I should say. So for me, it was always a dream that I wanted to have. So it's not surprising, but at the same time, I also look back and I think wow, you know what I mean? It's such a, for any, being able to talk and to meet all these different people, that is an honor. And so it is a human right when we think about travel, but it's it's also a privilege that a lot of people don't have. So yes and no.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me more about Arte and some of the programs that it offers.
Sure. So, again, more or less, this is, we've been around for 5 years and we're a relatively small organization, but I think the things that we do, I think we do a lot for what little we have. So I'm very proud of that. And, very grassroots, very, you know, really trying to be as integrated as possible with different communities in New York City. A lot of the work, we initially started with working with high schoolers. So thinking about, how do we share human rights and human rights education and knowledge of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, for example, with young
Right.
people in New York City. And so, a lot of the work traditionally, has been like mural projects with students. So the idea that young people will um, finally kind of get a chance to understand what human rights are,
Mm-hmm.
as a and I think I started because a lot of it was oftentimes when we think of human rights we think of it's like legal jargon or we think of something very
Right.
disconnected from us. So for me, a typical arte project, students get to like understand what some of these the frameworks of human rights are, these larger frameworks of human rights, and then creatively explore that. So some of the projects we've been doing in the past, we've partnered with schools. We've also worked in jails with students. We haven't done
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mural projects in jails, but we've done like creative explorations of human rights and the justice system and gender equity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, we're also working with another organization, a branding agency right now to reimagine, redesign the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I mentioned. And it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
the most prominent international instrument for human rights. So a lot of our work is like, how do we make something that was, created like in 1948? Now we're celebrating the 70th anniversary. How do we make it more accessible to people so it'll be something that people want to learn about and feel
Mm-hmm.
like human rights belong to them?
So you started doing a lot of these programs in New York City, right? And then you kind of grew it to be an international organization in a way. What kind of workshops have you done internationally as part of Arte?
Yeah, I still am. I'm glad you mentioned that. I still consider arte still very much local, but
Mm-hmm.
you're definitely right in the sense that we have done like small projects and workshops abroad. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think a while ago we had like the honor of working in South Africa at the University of Pretoria. They have a human
Okay.
rights program, so I spent like a week with them, with lawyers, like aspiring lawyers from across
Oh wow.
parts of Africa, but also parts of South Asia. So really incredible people who are like studying like law and human rights, but had never actually done art around it. So it was a way of connecting the
Mm-hmm.
things that they do as lawyers. They're shaping the way that international law is, but it was a way of giving them like a more creative lens on how they think about human rights. So that was one project that was done in Pretoria. Other projects, I've done smaller workshops in Cyprus on the island, working with refugee young people. Um, so like in different places, and I'm trying to think of other places as well off the top of my head, but like, and also I've done some presenting to the Council of Europe on like using this human rights framework. So yeah, there's been several instances of doing that. And I'm looking in 2019 because you mentioned about 2019, thinking about
Yeah.
how I can expand on that. That's something I'm really interested in focusing on to bring this model, this framework into a larger international community.
And you mentioned to me, this is when we were corresponding, that you were in Tijuana for a little bit. What were you doing there?
Yeah. So this is unrelated art day. It was like my holiday break. but,
Oh.
uh, but it was, no, but I went because, and it's all, everything is connected in my life. It's really important to me. For me, art day is a human rights organization. So therefore, a lot of that is like, how do we support immigrant communities right now, especially at a time where rights are being, um, really taking away people's the stakes have always been high and will continue to be high after the administration, before the administration. But I think right now it's very important to think about what's happening at the border. So as I mentioned, like a lot of our students we've worked with are immigrants. So it seems natural and proper to think about how, as an organization, how we support immigrants and how we think about immigrant art and expose young people to art that focuses on immigrant rights. And then for me personally, it's something very important and dear to me. And like, I wanted a way to support immigrants that, right now at a time, not just in my professional work, but also my personal life. So part of the work, I went to the border, and I've also been doing some work recently with another organization. So I actually went to Honduras in November, December, and then I went to the border in January. And I'm saying all this because I feel like it's all connected. Understanding why people migrate, why people are a part of the caravan, and understanding that piece. And then on the border scene, for me, I volunteered with a few different organizations very briefly, but just I wanted to get a sense of what actually was happening on the ground. I wanted to understand. I also wanted to feel feel like I was contributing in some way. I don't know if I actually was, but I definitely think I learned, So I worked with an organization called Al Otro Lado, which does incredible work. And then also, I also, something more like for me that I usually don't get to do was also working with the World Central Kitchen. And that's an organization created by Jose Andres. So Chef Jose Andres. So those were two organizations that I spent time working with. And then also on top of that, the organization that I had originally connected with was called New Sanctuary Coalition. So that's something based in New York, which do really, really important work with accompaniments. So I felt very grateful to as opposed to I lead an organization, to be actually to work in the service with others who are leaders in this and who know more about the situation than I did. I want an opportunity to learn as well.
Right. Do you see yourself going, returning to implement anything or collaborate with any of these other organizations?
Yeah, I think that I would like an opportunity to collaborate perhaps with some organizations. I'm thinking about some organizations on the border, because again, they know the border best. That was one thing I definitely realized is like when you're there, the situation, my understanding also was the situation on the border was very chaotic and constantly changing, So I think people who are there, figuring out what I in the work that I do could best bring that collaboration. I think also the issues of migration and I think it's something I also want to organize a little bit more locally as well. And thinking I'm also a part of a network, and Arte is a part of a network called the U.S. Human Rights Educators. Human Rights Educators USA, and I serve as a co-chair. And thinking about how to work with other educators across the U.S., providing tools, thinking about how also to talk about immigration and not only what I saw, but what's happening, and share that information with people working in classrooms. So that's something that I think. If I don't go back to the border, that's something that's very dear to me, and something I think that people really just want to hear right now too.
Right. So you're like a liaison, but you're presenting it in a way that's understandable for people like someone like me. I mean, I'm very blessed. I can't say I've been in that situation, but it's not, obviously it's something I do care about and something that I do want to support, but you can't, you know what I mean? It's without, and obviously someone like me, if I was to say just hop on a plane, go down there, I wouldn't know what the heck I'm doing. So you'd want to be able to digest it in a way that's, easy to understand and to know firsthand what's going on and to learn. And like you said, you're a liaison, you're giving me more information or more resources to read into.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's something, that's great. I follow a guy, he used to go to the new school, Thomas Ayuso. He goes back and forth. He's an Honduran. So it's interesting to see those accounts firsthand, but then also what's going on, on this side and then what's going on that side.
No. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, you're good.
No, I was just gonna add. Yeah, I think definitely. I think people talk a lot about the phrase bearing witness. So I think, I know. Again, I worked with an so I also, like I mentioned, went to Honduras briefly with an organization called the UU College of Social Justice. So for me, I helped co-lead a trip of U.S. folks and Bolivian, one Bolivian activist, and we went together to Honduras on the ground to work and learn from women activists there. So as a part of an organization called El Foro, so Foro de Mujeres. And so I guess I'm saying this is like the idea that, also what it means to hear directly from people who have been impacted by like U.S. policy, who have been impacted by violence, like gender violence, have been impacted by like land grabs, have been. So I think for me, it sounds kind of strange. I've been doing human rights work for a long time, but I also feel sometimes I think it's very easy to get desensitized. I hear this,
yeah.
even when you open your email, right, and you see all the different, if you sign up for all these different email chains and
Yeah.
Amnesty or Human Rights Watch, and it's very important work, but at the same time, it feels like, you do become desensitized, right? So I think being there and having the privilege of hearing people telling you their direct stories and seeing that firsthand, I think it was a reminder for me, of what's going on, and and then also the for me being there for one day, like I was there for a week, but for being even one day, we saw some of the trauma and the fear and the stuff that was going on, and then someone reminded us who was on the trip. It was like, these are things that people go every day. So it's just like, it was like,
Right.
I mean, take a step back. I'm like, whoa, and it's easy to forget, because we get lost in our own lives and our own situations. For me, I worry about students or things that are happening in New York City, but then to hear all these other stories, I think was like a reality check again.
Yeah, and like I said too, we're going back to what we were talking about with like media. It's just you get plummeted with a news story, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, that's not the hot news anymore, and then it's forgotten, and then people forget, and and there was this hot thing like, oh, children are being locked in cages, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, there was some celebrity, tripped and fell or something like that, and then it just becomes a forgotten thing, and it's still going on. I mean,
it's still going on, totally.
And like I said, if it is on the news, it's it's like I said, sometimes it's with a bias, or it's again with this fear mongering that's perpetuated a lot in the media, and it's like you said, it's like that's not what to be fearful for. It's to be fearful of these, like you said, with these our policies and what some of these corrupt governments have done to these individuals who are looking for salvation, really, at the end of the day. And I think it's great that something you're interested in, at least, and you're learning more about too. So like it's something you said you're desensitized, but at the same time, like you're still learning.
Totally.
So you have an upcoming fellowship in Thailand. How long do you plan on being there?
So yeah, thank you. I'll be there for 3 months, starting June. So June, June, end of May, June, and it's through Rotary, which I'm super excited. Rotary International. So people interested, they have a peace fellowship I think every year. Or the dates kind of, so like there's ones that are offered that people can get masters at different institutions across the globe. For me, I was more interested in like a 3-month certificate, so like a professional certification focusing on peace building, on conflict resolution. So for me, I'm really interested. It's funny because I talk about human rights work, and this is what I do, but a lot of it is the same as peace. And I was actually talking to someone about this recently. Yeah, when people have human rights and feel like their rights are being honored in their lives, that we construct more peaceful society. So I think I'm interested in, again, my heart has always been in the international community and thinking, learning from other people. So I'm hoping that part of the time, I think it's also a good time for reflection for my own work, because I would often joke with people, like, in the work that we do, we ask young people especially to reflect a lot on their experiences. And I think sometimes we don't do it ourselves.
Right.
So I think it's for me also to reflect on the work that I've been doing these last few years and where we're going to be going next. And also, hopefully an opportunity to take what we've done on the local level. And like I said, like you brought up in the previous question, how does that model look like in in a different country, in a different context outside of the U.S. or is there ways to bridge these programs together?
Mm-hmm. So I feel like art does transcend many languages. Mm-hmm. And what has surprised you about how young people have communicated through art?
Yeah, I think it was fun. It's funny you mentioned this because recently, I had a wonderful person come and kind of help strategically plan, I guess, more kind of a strategic analysis of the work that we do. And
Okay.
she meant, and the reason I'm bringing this up, she mentioned to me, she's like, that young people. She interviewed some of our wonderful young people that have participated in the past, and like,
Mm.
and she's like, of course, everything you do is in the context of human rights, but in the process of making art, like young people, she used the word, like the phrase, reclaim humanity, and I was like, oh, that's.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that's
You're like,
very.
me? This? Okay.
I was like, ah. And like, and also like reading through the interviews were really like the best part of my year, like just to hear what but yeah, I think she mentioned like it's a way of, and something I was going to mention earlier is like, um it's an opportunity for young people to reconstruct, but not even reconstruct, but more share the narrative of their own lives, as opposed to people telling them what they should be,
Right.
because, and this happens in like my life as an adult, but if you can imagine, like, this is what young people should be, this is what you're supposed to be doing, especially for young people of color, this is what young people of color are, versus
Mm.
having the opportunity to be like, this is actually who we are because we're saying this. And I think sometimes, I thought of this a lot too, is like also even, I might be an adult on a panel talking about young people. Like, so even, in my role, like, this is what I think young people are versus like, this is who they are and what they believe. So I think, um, yeah, giving a space where young people can share their own voices without people telling them who they are is something that I've
Right.
learned, that art allows for that space to happen. And so there's that. And then I think also, oh, one thing she also mentioned too, she's like, you prepare students for, not everyone, and not but like for college. And I was like, oh really, I didn't I didn't think we did that. But what she meant is like, when young people are able to share their own stories, when they have confidence, when they create something they're proud of, these are all skills that like will help them if they go to college, when they want to go to college, and also throughout their lives. I mean, these are lessons they
Right.
take. Like, they may not be artists, after they finish a program or when they graduate, but the things that kind of transcend art and their experience of what it means to be human. I think those are things that I was surprised. Like, those are not usual words that I use to describe the work that I do. So that was
Right.
kind of cool to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, because at the end of the day, like you said, it's not a matter of, you're not job prepping these students, but at the same time, if it gives them the opportunity to be confident and have self esteem regarding their identity, that's very important. Um, so you have a workshop coming up called Create Activate, and
Yeah.
it's going to be in Brooklyn, and next month, which and it's four weekends, right? Or is it four
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
sessions? So tell me a little bit more about like this workshop and any other workshops that Arte is going to be holding throughout 2019 and beyond.
And beyond. So we're excited about this because usually we like we go to different sites and do this work. So this time we're creating a space where young people can, it'll be 4 different sessions, as you mentioned, and it's a zine making workshop. So I'm super excited about. So like zines, like, and I'm like, I always fight for the right words for zines, but like a self-published magazine. So
Mm-hmm.
I love zines because they're super accessible. Anyone can make one. You can use collage. Um, you can do block printing, you could like do drawings, and like they're easily replicable, right? So you can like Xerox. When I was growing up, you could Xerox them and like pass them out to
Yeah.
people, and like,
What's
um
Xerox?
yeah. I know, right? So the idea is, the whole kind of, one extra layer is, like I had mentioned before, we're working with Thought Matter, this brand agency, to redesign. It's a beautiful redesign of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and they're designers, so it looks really beautiful, and like it's like this poster that folds out, and
Mm.
so the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, the idea came out was like, we have this really professionally done design that's appealing to the eye, and also, is there a way to collaborate with young people so that we're also creating a zine based on the UDHR with young people's own drawings. So it's kind of like
Right.
the two accompany one another.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we're going to have these workshop sessions, I'm super excited about. And young people, will be introduced to different ways that they can create art based on the 30 different articles that are part of this important human rights document. And by the end, we're also working with a wonderful designer who's going to help put it together. So the idea, like I said, like young people will have this, like, I created this zine, and and they'll also like have this poster, that booklet that they can keep with them and like pull out when they need, and like
Yeah.
and the
It's
other
so
part,
cute.
yeah, no, I'm super
Yeah, it's a
excited.
cute idea.
Yeah, and the other part is, oh, so maybe this is something I should share too. Is we're also, our goal is to print 2,000 of like,
Xerox 2000.
yeah, well, Xerox. We're actually not even Xerox. This is like going to be professionally printed and like fancy paper,
Yeah,
everything.
right.
So eventually, in our hope is in April that we're gonna like launch a Kickstarter. So people can stay tuned for that. But the idea that anyone who needs this UDHR can have access to it, and the idea that one day, this can be accessible in for our students and the people that we work with, but also perhaps in uh, like like law libraries or like places where, I think making sure that we get this human rights tool out to everyone, that's a
Mhm.
big thing for 2019.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I know it seems like an undertaking, but once it's going, it'll just be this. You'll just roll right into it. Then you're making these copies, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be an awesome launch.
Totally.
Where's the launch gonna be? Also in Brooklyn, or?
Yeah, we're planning for, actually, I'm glad you asked this, because May, actually, we already have the date, May 16th. We're trying to have like a more public workshop, but also kind of a community celebration, and we're hoping that that will be the official launch in Brooklyn at the Williamsburg Library. So I'm super
Oh,
excited.
cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a part of a thing called Teen Arts Week that's
Oh,
supported.
perfect.
Yeah, with the 92Y. So all this is coming.
Oh. And is there anything else coming up in 2019 we should keep an eye out for,
Mm.
or even just beyond, like you
Yeah,
said?
oh my God, take the youth take over the world for human rights. Yeah, no, we're doing other projects. Definitely, we're working with a community in Brooklyn called it's an organization called Los Sures, um, and that we're doing a community mural with them coming up. So that's in the works as well. Um, yeah, and again, we're planning these workshops, and we're also working with incarcerated students right now. Um, so it's something called Global Women Artivists in collaboration uh, the Justice and Education Initiative of Columbia. So I guess I'm saying this, we're thinking, one big dream I have right now is, how do we think that all young people should have access to the arts and also access to human rights education. So for me, I think 2019 is also thinking about, how do we support incarcerated young people, and especially young people who are recently reintegrated into their communities, and then also connecting them with with their peers and youth mentors to so that both can connect with their experiences around human rights, and also create really beautiful pieces of artwork. So I've been thinking that's something that's on my radar, in terms of like, someone actually said this really beautifully. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we can help young people reintegrate into their communities, but not preparing communities to welcome young people. So I think that's kind of
Right.
what we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Um, you know, yeah, that's, how do we support young people as they return, and also create safe communities that people feel like that these are their communities, that they don't have to go back
Right.
to this 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 system. So
Right. Absolutely. Well, please keep in touch. I mean, it
yeah,
sounds like you're going to have a great year. It sounds like you have a lot of things in the works, and I'm really excited to see how this fold out poster turns out, and
yeah,
how the
definitely.
workshop turns out, and what you can hopefully get your little certificate in Thailand,
Thank you.
and all the other things you get to work on this year. So please keep in touch, and maybe we could do a check in at some point,
Yeah,
maybe towards the end of the year.
thank
See
you.
what you. All right.
But I appreciate. Thank you for talking with me, and yeah, let's stay in touch. I'm really honored to be the first, and I know that you're going to do so many different ones, and I can't wait to hear them. So,
Yeah. All
so
right. Thank you very much.
thank you.